Like, just capture a conversation that's happening, but it just...
With the microphones, it's kind of hard.
It's just... It's taken us like an hour just to get things set up and download the things, and so then it doesn't feel natural.
Well, it was my fault because I didn't have it set. So now it's natural.
It's not natural.
Let's start the conversation now. How are you, babe? How you doing? Let's talk about the 2021 school year.
I'm not good.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this conversation, this episode of Conversation with the Browns. My wife said she's not good. Many of you may be feeling the same pressure right now if you're a parent. And we're headed to the 2020-21 school year, and there's a lot of uncertainty. So we thought we'd have a conversation about that. And so you can join us for this conversation. We discussed 4 things, and maybe there's more things you discussed, you are thinking about when it comes to the school year. We'd love to hear from you. You can always share your thoughts by visiting our website, lifewiththebrowns.com. It's going to lifewiththebrowns.com, and there you'll find a lot of information about what we do. You'll find this podcast, you'll find our YouTube channel, and you'll find how you can become a patron. You can help sponsor or support what we do and all the things we do as a family. So check that out. And you'll find information about our sponsor for this episode, which is my friends over at Sutherland DDS. They love to see you smile. Sutherland DDS, they take care of your teeth, and they've been on the show before, but they also sponsor the show, so we're grateful for them. And they are my personal dentist. They're my dentist for my kids and my wife, our whole family. We really like them. We call them family. So thank you, Sutherland DDS. They're my dentist, and they can be your dentist if you visit their website at yourreadingdentist.com. Once again, that's yourreadingdentist.com. With that said, I'm welcoming you to this episode of Life with the Browns as we discuss this very uncertain 2021 school year. You're not good about the school year?
No.
Why?
I mean, in my defense, I have yet to meet a single parent that is good about the next school year. Because it's hard to be good about something that you have no clue what it's going to look like.
Yeah. Uncertainty. Can I put the echo on that? We did the echo before in echo chambers. Yeah. Uncertainty. I can't do that. But anyway.
And honestly, even at the end of last year, I thought, oh man, my homeschooling friends have got to be really loving their life right now. That they're like, look, we've got to do this together and we're doing fine. And I realized even talking to a few of them, they were saying, no, none of us have done schooling through a pandemic. This is crazy and kind of scary and unprecedented for all of us. And it is affecting everyone. And I think maybe one of the things that is crazy and just contributes is, at least for me, I thought we're just going to get through the end of the school year at the end of last school year and things will go back to normal in the fall. And I probably clung to that illusion a little bit too long because we're now 3 weeks out and it is becoming very clear that we're not returning to normal. And I think that can offer some really important opportunities for reshaping what we want normal to even look like. But right now it's just, I'm not doing good.
I like you said that because I was having a conversation with some superintendents and they were mentioning the fact that they read a quote about we shouldn't want things to go back to normal, but to be better, which is hard to say right now in the situation because there's so much uncertainty. So you're not doing well. Most parents aren't doing well. What can we do? How can we?
Well, so this is a question and we were about to just talk about it. I've been talking with so many friends about it, but this is before we had microphone problems and software problems. This is what the conversation I wanted to have with you is. I have 4 things that I think would be helpful for me if I could keep these 4 steps or 4 elements in mind in trying to think about the next school year. So I want to just talk to you about them.
All right. I'm listening.
You have a phone camera held up to my face, and it's really weirding me out.
Well, I'm just capturing a moment. This is
Please tell me what's happening right now.
This is just to promote this podcast on social media. So we're not recording it. video recording this podcast, but I want to promote it to say, hey, this is what we're doing. So I'll stop now so we continue our conversation without having...
Okay, because you're talking as if nothing is happening, but I'm watching something very strange happening, and I'm not a professional podcaster yet, so I can't pretend like we're just having a chat and you don't have a giant phone in between. Well, we're
having a chat, and we have these big microphones in our face too. So,
but that was agreed upon before we started.
All right. Well, I just want to. You're just so beautiful. I want to take a picture of you as you talk. So, lead the conversation, baby. I'm listening.
Can you be done with the phone?
I'm done with the phone.
All right. So here is my first thought: is that I need to start by stating my values. What do you think about that? Do you think that's a good place to start?
Well, stating your values, maybe telling other people, but more for yourself. Like, I think it's for myself.
I actually started with articulate, and that just sounded like a big word that you...
Well, embrace your values or understand your values. Understand where you are in this situation. And what do you mean by values? Like what's important to you, what you...
Well, and maybe what I mean by even state and not just understand or embrace is that I think that part of what makes this so complex is that there are so many issues at play. School represents so many things for so many different families. For some reason, we have bundled school as a solution to so many needs that a child faces, that families have. And so when this one element is just kind of thrown for a loop, it unsettles so much of life. We work from home, and for us, school is not primarily used as childcare. But I realize that for so many families, one of the reasons that this is so panic-inducing is because they have relied on school for childcare so that both parents can work. Or for single parents who, again, they need their job in order to support their family, and school is their major childcare option. And this is coupled with a global pandemic where so many of us don't know where the next paycheck is coming from. So you have financial stress and uncertainty coupled with it's just layered on top of each other. It limiting your opportunity for work, and there's just so many things. And I think even just in that conversation, it has been helpful for me to be able to state, like, I can see that childcare issue for so many families. I can have empathy for it and I can care about it. But it's helpful for me to state then what do I value school for our family, and be realistic about the fact that I cannot want and have everything at the same time in the same season. Okay. So it's more for me the value of saying out loud or writing down and processing in a really tangible way in this next season for our family or for me or for our children. What do I value? And intentionally limiting that I can't pick everything. I can really only focus on working towards and making any, I don't even know the word, progress or meaningful. I can only take meaningful action on a very small set of values. So how do we as a family talk about what matters to us and really be specific on that, and then let that kind of be a guiding light for which issues do I say I see why that really matters to you, and also I don't need to get all whipped up about
amped up
certain things.
Our word is amped up. We like the amp wheel.
I don't need to jump on the amp wheel for certain things. I can maintain empathy for my neighbor and care, but I can't really contribute meaningfully if I'm not specific about what are the pieces that really matter to me, what do we value, and then how do we work towards that. And I think that that's super important because so much of what used to be given is all thrown into question. And because a lot of the options that we would have been choosing from are just not available to us, it's helpful to get underneath those and we made the decision about school when Sophia started kindergarten, and I wasn't anticipating having to make another decision this year.
No, not for 8 years. Like what? 9 years. You get 8th grade, right?
Yeah. So this was not a choice I really even wanted to remake, but it's helpful for me to realize this is actually though what the situation is offering to us is we need to talk about what do we value and how do we make a choice that fits with what our family values in this season?
Yeah. And when you say value in general, I just jumped right to value, but value in the situation of dealing with education for the 2021 school year.
Yeah. And it has been, just as like another side note, it's been really helpful for me to embrace the fact that all I can really do that for is this season right in front of us. I have kind of resisted the whole make a family mission statement, paint your family values on the wall sort of sentiment because I feel like our life is so seasonal and so much changes, and there's always this need to adapt and re-articulate what matters now for our family, the way it looks in this season. And so it's been really helpful for me to embrace just because we make a choice today, this month, this school year, that does not mean that we don't get to make a different choice next year. We will be different people. We'll have different experiences on board next year or next semester or whatever the season is. And we can make a different choice then if a different choice makes sense. But so to kind of embrace the temporary nature of it, that I can make a choice today, and it's helpful to articulate them, but I don't have to feel like this has to be the once and for all. These are the only things our family cares about.
Right.
It's just what do we know today?
It's easier to make choices like just set it and forget it. Remember that infomercial? Set it and forget it. But that's not real life. Okay.
What was that an infomercial for?
It was for that little some device on the side of your like a rotisserie thing or something. Like you put your meat in it.
Bake oven or something.
It was something easy bake oven. It was something like that. Set it and forget it. But that's not life.
And really, who wants to live their life eating from an easy bake anyway?
It wasn't an easy bake, but it was something like it.
Yeah, I clearly didn't watch very much TV growing up.
All right. I got to find it now. I'm going to put in the show notes. Everybody, hey, if you know what it is out there, let us know. What was that commercial? What was the device, the infomercial? Just set it and forget it. I forgot. I remember the audience saying it a whole bunch of times. Anyway.
Oh, man. All right. Number 2. This is my next thing. After I've stated my values, number 2 is look for nuance.
You got to give a definition for nuance. See, we've been married for 10 years, 11 years. We're in our 11th year of marriage, and you use a lot of big words, and I always ask you, what does that word mean? What does nuance mean?
I feel like I should Google it and give an official
I'll Google it while you talk about what you mean by nuance.
Maybe what I mean by nuance is, well, actually, I think my example is best in just my own experience that when I think about people I think about as a kid and how I would have this little bit of information and I was just so sure that I knew everything that there was to know.
Yeah,
and
like our kids.
The less I know, the more confident I am about it. And I remember being in college and encountering people who were some of the smartest people that I had met to that date. And they had this level of, they like embraced their uncertainty in a way that I had not experienced by people who knew far less than them. They had so much more space to accommodate different points of view and see the commonality and see the complexity of a situation. And I think that there is a huge tendency, especially when you don't know very much, to simplify any issue, any circumstance down to something that's really easily quotable. There's something about that's just easier. And so our brain is always looking for shortcuts. And nuance is harder to make space for. But I think that it's really important because some of the reasons, specifically with school, the reason this situation is so hard is because there's so many different things at play and there's so much that I just don't understand. And so that's why I put this number 2, though, is I think it's important for us as a family and me personally to have articulated, to have stated what really matters to us. But then I need to be really intentional about looking for other points of view and really seeking out what are the pieces of information that I don't understand, or what do I not have access to? How do I increase my understanding of this situation? Because otherwise it's just really easy to assume that everyone shares the same values I do, and some people are just violating them.
And they just don't see it the way you see it. So the definition of nuance, according to the dictionary.com, a subtle difference or distinction in expression, meaning, or response. A very slightly different or variation of a color or a tone. So like you talked about understanding, like I may not understand, or we've noticed this in our marriage. We will have an argument, a discussion, sometime heated, about something, and we're saying the same thing, using the same words, but we have different meanings to those words.
Yep.
And so the idea that someone may say something about the school year and you may not understand what they mean by it, but taking time to get the nuance, what they mean by it, to get a better understanding is important.
Right. For example, this whole mask thing that everyone has lots of opinions about. I think that we can just really easily, when we hear a little soundbite, we attach all of the value and meaning that we have instead of being curious about what are the subtle differences that somebody else brings to the table. I think about, people expressing a dislike of mask wearing, and it can be really easy for a lot of nuance to then get lumped together into one statement that misses so much of the complexity of what the situation is. We really want to simplify it. But then the interesting thing is there are people on both sides saying anyone who does not wear a mask hates their neighbor, hates society, is a terrible person. And then you have people on the other side saying anyone, I don't even remember which one I said, wearing a mask, not wearing a mask.
You said not wearing
Everybody
a mask.
hates their neighbor,
right.
and
if you don't
stupid.
wear one, right? But then if you wear one, then you're complying to this control thing, and you just being a sheep. I've seen a lot of images online where all the sheep are wearing masks and the lions are not, and so. But somebody literally may have bad asthma, cannot breathe. I saw a lady with a breathing machine. Can she wear a mask? Does she not love her neighbor because she's not wearing a mask? So there's a lot of nuance.
There's so much nuance. And sometimes when the stakes are really high for me and something is really connected to something I value, I actually am worst there at looking for nuance. If something really matters, I am really quick to be defensive or to jump to a conclusion about something because I feel like the stakes are high. They should obviously matter to everyone. And I think those are actually the places where I need to be really careful to search out nuance. And the times that I've done it, often it actually helps me come to a better, more settled, more even useful and creative solution when I embrace the fact that other people bring to the table things that I just don't have naturally, and I actually need that experience. I need that difference.
I just think the world would be better if everybody thought like I did. It'd be easier. I wouldn't say better. It would be easier. If everybody thought and saw everything the way I saw it, it would be easier.
It would be frightening.
It would be. It'd be boring. It'd be frightening, and it would not work. So
okay,
we need nuance.
We're just we should have set a timer because we're just talking too long.
Well, that's what this is called, Conversation with the Browns. That's what we do.
We just talk. Okay, number one is state your values. Then I'm looking for nuance. Then I'm releasing control. How do you feel about this?
I don't like releasing control.
Why not?
I'm not a control freak, but I like to be in control. I think of being responsible. So I don't know if that's what do you mean by releasing control, first of all?
Well, I think that this pandemic, one of the things really early on that was really made clear to me is that it has shown me how much I, the non-controlling person, really rely on control for my sense of well-being.
Wait, say that again? The what?
I think of myself as not controlling. I really don't go about trying to control other people, but I have realized that what I do is try to control myself and my environment as a way of feeling safe. And it, for me, is, I think, too tied to my sense of responsibility. The best example for me is my children. At its very best, if I'm really honest, they are little human beings who, once I gave birth to them, were completely independent of or separate from. They are dependent. They need me to be responsible. But I realize that so often I confuse responsibility with control. And the reality is that I cannot control very much. I can be responsible. I can try to show up and set guidelines and care. But love and control are not the same thing.
I guess that makes sense because I did with you with the pandemic realize how much I was not in control. I had my schedules booked. I had, speaking engagements, all this stuff. And who would ever thought that we wouldn't be able to go play basketball on Monday? Like, I realized it was a lot more I did not have control of. But I hear what you're saying. I can be responsible, but understand I'm not in control of everything that goes on.
Yeah. And I think that's just important for me, especially when I run into situations where, like with school, often there are people who are making decisions that directly influence our everyday life. And it can be really scary to realize I don't have a lot of control about that. And I think it's mostly just a matter of facing up to the facts that I released control because I didn't actually have it.
Right. I had the illusion of control, but not having control. But I can still be responsible in that situation. I can still look at my personal responsibility is, but understand I am not in total control of everything that happens. Yeah.
And it's a subtle shift, but I think for me moving forward, it will be a helpful one to remember I'm not in control, but I am responsible. And so how can I choose well in this situation? Yeah. How can I choose well with the responsibility that I've been given? And some of that, though, is going to require me to release whatever the results are because there's so much that, again, I'm not in control of.
Well, that makes me think of one of the biggest points I talk about, the difference between responding and reacting. Like I'm responsible for responding to the stuff that happens that I don't like versus reacting where it's just a knee jerk. I do whatever I think, I say whatever I say, and it doesn't always work out well. So knowing I'm not in total control, I may not like what the school district comes down to. I may not like what the governor says. I may not like any of this, but how am I going to respond to the situation so I'm not out of control totally? Because sometimes we react and we lose all kinds of control over what we do have control over. I just said control a lot.
Yeah, and I think I understand the urge to yell at the teacher and berate the principal and demand the firing of all the board members because the school didn't choose something that worked for you, and because I understand feeling like it threatens your family and your livelihood and the fear that is attached there. But if I step back now and realize I don't have control about what's going to happen, it will help me from the reality is yelling at the teachers and all of that is not actually achieving any of the results that I would have hoped for. I get that it can feel like a controlling posture, but that's reality illusion. To all of us watching is anyone who's not in the middle of that, we realize that it's coming from a person that is completely out of control and also not behaving responsibly. And I realize that I'm headed into a situation where I will be prone to outbursts quiet fuming probably is more likely what will happen for me. Quiet fuming that is based in my illusion that I should have been able to control this and everyone else is just ruining my life. And instead, releasing that and being able to instead say, no, but how can I be responsible even if the only thing I am responsible for in this situation is how I respond to someone that made a choice that affects me deeply that I disagree with.
Right. Makes sense.
All right. My last one is show up. And I actually have show up with, I had played with different words, but I think that I want my fourth piece to be show up with blank, because I realize the fact that I probably need to continue to choose every day, first of all, just to show up, and then maybe ask the question of what is this day? What do I want to show up today with?
And I like that idea of showing up, because sometimes, and you struggle, you talk about your own struggle with showing up and, thinking whether or not you have value to add to the situation. But even someone like me who's out in the public, out and as a speaker, I think that I know I show up a lot. I show up to spaces and do my thing, right? But sometimes in these situations, when there's so much going on, there's so much that's unknown, I have a tendency not to show up because I don't have anything to contribute. Give me some facts. Give me some things I can work with. I can give you my idea. But if I don't know what the situation is, I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know. I can't make 2 + 2 = 4 in a situation. Yeah. The tendency is not to show up because I don't have anything to add. And I think sometimes showing up is to show up to listen. Mm-hmm. It's to show up to learn. The blank could be a lot of things, but it is important to show up.
Yep. And I think that right now, the overarching thing that as I'm thinking about school and all of the choices that are in front of us, and even the anxiety that is caused in me by the fact that there are a lot of unknowns and I don't get to make all the choices.
Right.
I think that I really want to focus on showing up with kindness. Kindness for myself and the reality that I cannot actually eliminate uncertainty and fear even for my kids. Because that's some of it is I want the best for my kids. And this matters so much to me because I feel a responsibility towards them. To be able to show up towards myself with kindness and then towards other people with kindness. And at least for that to be the starting point, because I think sometimes kindness says really hard things. Caring about other people. Kindness doesn't mean telling a person who's got spinach stuck in their like just smiling and nodding when somebody's got spinach stuck in their teeth.
You wouldn't do that,
would
you?
Kindness sometimes is doing the awkward thing because I see them as human beings and care about their needs too. So kindness may require me to advocate for my kids in a really way that is challenging for me because it could be conflictual. It may mean offering grace to teachers and principals and administrators who are in a really difficult situation right now. But I think at least I can choose kindness every day and to try my very best to show up with kindness. There probably will be a lot of other things that kindness would even require. But I think that moving forward, even towards other parents too, because so much I'm almost watching parents turn on each other because we have conflicting values.
You mean parents don't agree with each other all the time? I mean,
shocker. So I'm seeing within myself the need to show up with kindness for other parents who have very different values and different needs. And that's why I think it becomes this cycle. I need to articulate my own values and show up with those too, to know that what matters to my family does matter. But then again, to look for nuance and appreciate that other families need other things.
Right. I like the idea. I mean, this idea of showing up is really great because as you talked about the blank, I'm filling the blank a whole bunch of times. Show up to listen, show up to learn, show up to be present, show up to contribute, show up with kindness. I think all those things, and they're going to be different in different times but you need to have the idea of showing up because I think on 2 levels. Number one, some of us think we have too much to contribute that no one else matters. So we need to show up and shut up.
Sometimes I guess showing up does mean you listen more.
Yeah, show up and listen to someone else for change. Yeah. But for some of us, it means show up and contribute. Even if you think your idea is stupid, even if you think everyone else thinks what you're going to say doesn't matter, it matters because even if it's not chosen, it leads to another possibility. But if you didn't say that and contribute, we never get there. Kind of like playing basketball. Playing basketball the other day, playing defense, I reached for the ball on defense. I reached for the ball and I didn't quite get it. But what happened was the person who they were throwing the ball to reacted to me reaching, and my teammate got the ball because of that. So although I didn't touch the ball myself, but me being present and exerting some effort caused a turnover that we got the ball. So I think in this situation, show up no matter what you think you have a value to bring, because you bring value in and of yourself, because you have a story to bring, you have insight, and you have ears to listen. So I think on that wide spectrum, because sometimes the loudest voice isn't always right.
Yeah.
The squeaky wheel does not always need the most oil, or is not the most effective wheel on the cart.
Some of them aren't squeaking because they just stopped moving.
Right. So I think everybody needs to show up.
Yeah.
Show up to listen, show up to learn, show up to contribute, show up and be there, and be a part of the solution, because even if you don't have the answer, you being present can lead to the right answer.
Mm-hmm. And I think kindness to me is so important, because many of us, if we're honest, are showing up scared. If we show up, we're really scared.
And when we're scared, we make some bad choices at times.
It's hard to be kind when you're scared.
Yeah, because because you're already sensitive. When somebody says something that doesn't sound right, you want to jump down the throat because it's contributing to your fear. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people either fight or flight, but most of us want to fight because we're already mad about.
And if I flee, I'm not showing up. Like
right.
That's the thing, is I need to show up, because otherwise it is a flight. It's a flight response.
It is. And we're already on edge because we've lost control, or the illusion of control, a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. So we're already kind of frustrated. Like, we can't go out to normal restaurants. We can't go play basketball. We can't do these different things. And then we're just on edge anyway. So when you show up, maybe show up and take a deep breath. But you need to show up to the conversation.
Yeah. This wasn't answers, but I at least feel like it gives me a path for having conversations with friends, and with the reality that we probably all are going to make slightly different choices. What this, like so many other things, in some ways we're in the same boat, and in some ways we're all experiencing some very different things.
We are, but I think what you mentioned important. I think the idea of continuing the conversation in your community, mm-hmm. like listening to us, but hey, talk to your husband, talk to your wife, talk to your neighbors, talk to those other parents at your school. Have some conversations about these things, because it's going to, number one, help you to process it. And let's talk about this too. And we're going to do another podcast about this where I talked about it. Conversation in front of your kids. Like, maybe not have that conversation in front of your kids, because I think it's okay to process these things where you're uncertain, but you don't want to make your kids so uncertain.
Well, maybe we'll do that we'll have that as the next episode. But this one, I think the thing that is really helpful is it helps me to this process helps me show up in conversations and be more curious about my friends and my neighbors, and leading with better questions instead of, how do you feel about masks? How much do you loathe this situation?
Right.
Excuse me. I think it helps me to show up in a better way and ask better questions.
All right. Well, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this conversation, babe. And coming up, you spearheaded this conversation, so thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us for this episode. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, all the places you find or listen to podcasts. Thank you for joining us. And we'd love for you to leave us a rating on whatever platform you listen to us at. And if you're watching us on YouTube or listening to us on YouTube, give us a rating there. Or actually give us leave a comment there. You can leave a comment there. You can subscribe to our channel, and definitely press that thumbs up, that like button thing, because that helps more people find out what we're doing here with Life with the Browns. Not only that, if you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see a lot more videos of our kids. We're doing a lot of new things, including In the Kitchen with the Browns. You got to check that out. My wife, sometime me, most of my wife and kids are cooking in the kitchen, sharing recipes, sharing laughs, and just sharing life with you. So thanks for being a part of what we're doing with Life with the Browns. And we hope you tune in to our next episode, which we're going to talk about conversations not to have around your kids or something like that, in the next episode of Conversations with the Browns. Thanks for joining us. Hey, the music didn't stop yet. So I keep talking till the music stop, because this is kind of fun. I like making podcasts. And I'll be interested to know how many of you listened to this part of it. Did you listen this long to hear me say all of this? If you do, let me know. Just say, matter of fact, just leave a comment that said, I did it. And everybody else want to know what you did. Just leave a comment and say, I did it, which meant you listened to the end, to the very, very end of this podcast. The music actually came to an end, because most people don't do that. They're on to the next thing. But you stayed all to the end. You did it.